It's the Dolson Mifflin Paper Company coming at you for our second set of SPL action here on Sunday. I don't know where that hit. I thought it was pretty good. Mifflin, you might have another opinion on it, but we've got a good set. What will hit, I think, is the matchup we've got here to round out this week in SPL. Radiance up against SSG. Lots to look at, I think, here. I think two teams that had similar expectations kind of coming into this year should be top teams, and we're finally going to get to see them going head-to-head. Radiance obviously undefeated up to this point. Do you think that continues here today, Mifflin?
It certainly can. I think SSG is the challenger in this situation, but man, I'm just jealous that I don't get to cast this set. It's so important. These are two teams that I think most of the fans would. Yeah, I do get to analyze it, right? This is two teams that most would agree are going to be top of the pack, right? And this is really going to be Radiance's another test for them, where they can see whether or not this dominance is going to remain unchallenged. I think a lot of it's going to be born out of that middle lane matchup. I mean, BigManTingz coming onto this star-studded roster out of nowhere, and he's been performing exceptionally well. Dardez last year and this year as well has been performing completely cracked as well. There's a lot to watch out for.
I agree, and I was able to sit down with BigManTingz. We'll get to that interview here in a little bit, but you kind of look at this Radiance roster, and it's, you know, three separate teams. A couple guys have played with one another, all melded together. So the big conversation, the storyline, I think, with Radiance coming into this year is, can they mesh together well enough, personality-wise, playstyle-wise, maybe mainly, to make something great happen? And through 3 games it has, but I agree with your point. You look at SSG today, and then Rival next week, as I talked about just prior to that break. These next 2 games are probably the biggest tests in a row that Radiance will face up to this point this year. So outside of maybe that middle lane matchup, maybe talk me through the jungle a little bit. What have you seen from Adapting so far in this split? What do you want to continue to see from him? Has he lived up to your expectations for, honestly, the reputation that he brings to the table?
Adapting's been playing like Adapting's been playing since the beginning of time. He is a little bit more on the selfish side of SPL jungles, but that's because he knows that he is the king. Adapt King is the nickname, right? He wants to farm up for the late game and try and play that solo agent role. A little bit less team fight focused is Adapting. I think it's interesting that you point out that Radiance, the main story is, how well is this team going to mesh together? I know a lot of the fans and a lot of the conjecture around them is that there's a lot of egos on this squad. CycloneSpin's been hailed as one of the best players in the world at a time, Adapting as well. It's how well they can really fit together and get those egos pointed the right direction.
And it's actually pretty perfect that you bring that up. When I was sitting down with BigManTingz to talk about this matchup with him, the ego word kind of comes up, and that's something he was able to talk to me about. So let's jump in and take a listen from the man himself. I'm here with Radiance's mid laner, BigManTingz, and we were talking to them, or him rather, about his matchup against SSG here today. First off, kind of on a team level, undefeated so far is Radiance, and the only undefeated team left in this league. Do you guys feel like you're unstoppable at this point, or as a team, do you realize that there's still some mistakes to iron out? They're still up to go.
Yeah, no, definitely. Even in scrims and SPL games, obviously we're still learning, we're still making mistakes, and although we're unbeaten right now, I don't expect us to go for the whole season unbeaten. The league is really competitive right now. There's a lot of good teams, so we just take one game at a time and try and improve as much as we can each game.
That's certainly a good mindset to have, and I'm curious, and obviously it's worked out well, but, you know, a couple Splice guys, a couple E-United guys, Adapting from the Knights, kind of all coming together. How's it been meshing all those different personalities? It seems to work, but how has that growth been for you guys?
I think it was certainly a lot harder than I thought it would be at the start. Not necessarily because of egos and such, more just like different play styles come like working together and joining together, really. A lot of people obviously having different ideas on how to play the game and how to do certain things within the game. So I think it was just a little bit of learning time adapting to that, really.
Well, whatever you guys have done, it's worked out very well. Obviously, going up against SSG, maybe a team kind of built from a similar vein as you guys. And I think coming into this split, a lot of people had SSG towards the top. Do you think that these guys could be the toughest matchup you've had yet?
I think so. I think they're definitely a strong team, especially what they showed last year. in the Worlds run up they had. So yeah, I definitely think it's probably our toughest opponent yet, and we've prepared well for it, I think. So we'll just see how it goes.
Yeah, I'm excited. This one certainly at least spells out on paper a very close and very good matchup. Kind of final thoughts, maybe towards you specifically. Dardez has played a big role in a lot of SSG's success here so far. How's your specific confidence going into a lane up against Dardez?
I mean, I'm pretty confident pretty much no matter who I go up against. It's not really about who I'm against. It's just about how much confidence I have as a player going into the game with my team around me. So I'm always confident going into a game. I trust my teammates, and hopefully we just have a good showing as a team. That's the main thing at the end of the day.
Yep, I think it's a great mindset to have. You know, I always have to ask, set predictions, score predictions. You think you guys come out with a win here?
Yeah, I think we're going to 2-0.
Absolutely. Hey, he says 2-0. Best of luck to you today. Thanks for sitting down. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Confidence tends to be key, and Radiance, BigManTingz, and the rest of the squad have that in spades. But they've got an opponent here today that'll try to give them a run for their money in SSG. Now, Mifflin, going into this, we did touch on that mid lane matchup just a little bit. I do want to point out, though, this is a Radiance team that it's hard to kind of get these big team fighty, kill heavy games. Just quickly breezing over the stats. Nobody from Radiance is within the top 16 players of kills in this league, but 4 members of Radiance are bottom 5 in deaths. So this is a Radiance team that plays cleanly. They don't necessarily need these big kill heavy games to play it. What type of play style do you maybe want to see out of SSG today? Do you look for them to play their own game or try to adapt to what Radiance has done so well?
I think just looking purely at the stats, Radiance is a team not unlike Sanguine where they really thrive in that late game phase. I think SSG have a couple avenues of success here. They could try and pull a rival and win out in the early, or they try their best to match the late game. That's some of the benefit of it being a best of 3. If that doesn't work out for you, you can try to adapt your playstyle in game 2. I would like to see them try and take away some of the pieces of success that we've been seeing from Radiance. They're always trying to put CycloneSpin ahead. They're always allowing Adapting to completely free farm his own jungle. I think if we see some aggression, some discomfort placed onto Radiance, we get to see a different side, maybe see whether or not that holds up their play style.
Well, I mean, at this point, we've talked about mid lane, now a bit in the Hunter conversation as well. What does that jungle matchup kind of look like to you? Cherryo against Adapting. What types of play styles do you expect from these two junglers?
Cherryo plays jungle similar to the old Xbox way, which was, we want to get involved the second my speed buff drops the first time. Old Xbox players, if they could just bypass going to the soul lane and help it out with the blue, they would, because it's really about setting the pace in the early. Cherryo loves to get in these early fights. That's why we see him picking Thor and all these other gods like that. They can have these global ultimates that can get involved immediately. He's more of a facilitate style jungle, whereas Adapting is the late game hyper carry adapt king. He's going to pick out Kali. He's going to pick these gods that are really going to scale well into the late and just hold W at enemies, and it's going to work because he's one of the mechanically best players there is.
And again, that's going to be such an interesting kind of meshing of play styles that we see here. Radiance, a team that has done a good job of, well, limiting the amount of deaths they've had. I mean, they've won 3 sets, all 3 of them 2-0, so you're always going to have few deaths when that seems to be the case. Picks and bans for game number 1, kicking off here, and maybe one of the more anticipated matchups of this week. A team in Radiance that has blown away, I think, expectations, and then some. In SSG, a team, I think, as well, that has started to live up to some of what people were looking for them to do here in the SPL. I think smart ban there from Radiance. Once you know what Dardez is able to do on this Aphrodite in the mid lane, let's take her out of the conversation because played a big role in SSG's success last week.
I would be surprised if any team allows Dardez to pick Aphrodite again. I mean, that performance was so dominant. That was Aphrodite played at the absolute peak. Taking away that comfort pick is huge, but it's going to leave a lot more gods open. Now you've wasted one of your bans on something that maybe isn't an essential top pick normally, so maybe Camazotz finds his way through. Yemoja finds her way through. There's a lot of things that Radiance are leaving available in order to target out Dardez here.
That's true. Yemoja comes to mind. Now, with Odin banned out, I was wondering if Odin would be that third god that kind of slipped through, but that's not going to be the case. So Yemoja, Camazotz juggling maybe for a ban slot here from SSG. Of course, you can always opt to leave both of them open, so then you can take away one of the two if Radiance end up picking one or the other. And it looks like maybe that's the mindset they have. Let's take away Thor from adapting, one of the best players in the world on that god. But I do like the options that SSG have left themselves open to, and it's not even going to be the Yemoja or the Camazotz, with Ullr being locked in first.
With the Odin ban and them taking Ullr first, they've already removed one of the best counters to Hell, which is a very meta healer right now. I imagine we will see her picked up, or at least banned in that second phase. Ullr, a fantastic first pick. We've been saying it all day today. Great flex towards mid, great flex towards the duo lane. SSG picking Serqet kind of indicates to me that they're not even remotely interested in this Hell. It's a decent counter pick, and it's a good way to try and prevent Radiance feeling comfortable taking it for themselves.
Yeah, Serqet, Jormungandr, a couple power picks there for SSG. And I still kind of have to bring it up. I mean, I think maybe Yemoja at this point, less surprising that she's kind of fallen. I believe it was in our last set where she kind of fell into that second wave of bans. I'm surprised that Camazotz, though, hasn't been picked up here for either of these teams. Obviously realizing that played around properly, maybe it's not all that powerful. I think he's still certainly strong, though. Geb, I think, needs to be the conversation piece, though. First 3 picks here for Radiance are in, and Geb may be the headliner there.
That's not a pick we've been seeing a lot of. Geb, one of the best facilitator supports there is. If you want a hyper game late carry, as I've been known to say, Geb's one way to do it. Geb and Khepri both are going to allow late game dive gods to just go in there, do what they want to do, get shielded up, immune to any sort of CC, as well as having a fantastic engage or disengage tool in the Cataclysm Ultimate. This god's getting slept on just a little bit.
And I'm excited to see what he brings to the table. It's kind of one of those prove-it games. Show us why you pick him up. You've got some ground to make up here. Chang'e was a conversation that we had, actually, I believe, in our last set, Mifflin, where this healer meta starting to be a conversation piece. Aphrodite, Hell. Chang'e's kind of in that next tier, I think, of healers that some people are trying to bring to that forefront. So do you like SSG taking her away here with one of their bans?
The Chang'e ban is interesting to me. We haven't seen her picked even a little bit. She's one of the more teamfight-focused healers. That huge ultimate at maximum potential is a 5-second stun. Kind of crazy to think about. But
yeah, not bad.
Us never seeing it in effect or even used for that counter healing potential means that SSG probably knows something of Radiance that we don't. That Chang'e ban kind of came out of left field for me.
Yeah, interesting to say the least. So you wonder if maybe she's left open at some point. Radiance are going to move over to it. Kuzenbo, a god that just last game found success. 4-team rival, and in the right hands, you can see what this god can do. And I like kind of this mindset with the Jormungandr paired with the Kuzenbo here, especially with the Hugh Yi in that lane, some lockdown potential for SSG. What are your thoughts on Kuzenbo here, and are you happy with the pick?
I mean, the first time I saw iRaffer pick Kuzenbo, I thought he was just trolling, and then he picked it the next set, and the next set, and now PBM's picking it as well. Kuzenbo's looking like a god that's designated just to bullying out anyone who's in front of him. It's very hard for Raijin to want to channel his damage, as long as a turtle's standing in front of him reflecting it. It's very hard for Ullr to escape him as well, as Kuzenbo has a lot of lockdown tools. The ultimate's going to be a fantastic disruption tool in these late-game teamfights as well. I like the pick now. I wasn't a huge fan at the beginning of the season.
Do you get the vibe that Radiance are kind of trying to brawl, though? I mean, a King Arthur, a Susano locked in here for them as well. Ullr for some lockdown in that early game. What sort of sense are you getting from the Radiance composition here?
Radiance picked a team that scales very well in the early. Susano's pressure and mobility essentially makes him a pseudo-global, as well as Ullr has one of the best early games, if not the absolute best early game for every hunter. But all these gods also scale incredibly well into the late. It's just a good draft from Radiance, and the same can be said of SSG.
Yeah, Hera's going to turn her head into the SPL for the first time this split as well. Radiance, SSG, let's kick it off for Game 1.
Thanks so much, Dave and Myth on the desk. Yeah, Aggro will be joining me for this cast of Radiance up against SSG early on. Benji already on the aggression here. And Ryan, one thing I do want to touch on in picks and bans is we've definitely seen a bit of a change up here. You know, we've been seeing a lot of these meta picks that have come to fruition the last couple of weeks. But we see Geb for the first time, who's generally seen as low pressure, and obviously a role player, and that seems a bit susceptible to me. But also that Changa ban and the Hera pick. It's starting to open up a bit more.
Yeah, the big thing for me is this Geb selection for Aror. Not only does it not usually vibe with what you see Aror pick, the Hercules, the Horus, gods like that are very aggressive, but it's just not what we've seen be successful in duo lane, where it's just pressure is king at that time. I think that maybe you're just looking at Ullr to be
killed it last night, Gore.
So good that it
good
doesn't matter overall that they get that pressure out of your Guardian. You don't need that pressure coming from Horus. It's just the ability through that gap.
Oh, Aror pulled under the tower, not respecting iRaffer at all there. Couple more hits would do it, but the limp away is gonna be okay just about. Those health potions will tick back in. And yet that's the susceptibility of, you know, the Geb early game. He's not got that much pressure, but I guess Ullr does alleviate that a little bit, right?
Exactly. You just think that Ullr has so much more pressure than any other hunter that it's going to be impossible for you to lose your kill potential in this lane anyways. Plus Shockwave does set up for Axe or your bow stance combo, so it's not like you have no setup over there in that lane, and someone as talented as CycloneSpin, you imagine, is going to be able to land those off that little bit of CC.
Adapting, wrapping around the back, and Big Man engaged early, looking towards Dardez as a focal point, and Adapting will take him down. Dardez off the map for the time being, and it's a great little start for Radiance. I was going to say, like, we've talked a little bit on the desk quite a bit and through the weeks of how Adapting's been quite, well, Radiance as a whole, to be honest, have been quite happy to sit back and just eat some pressure and wait for when they want to make the plays happen. It's a prime example of it actually being a different state there this time round.
And I love that play by BigManTingz, understanding that Adapting is going to be coming in over the top. No reason to play scared in that moment, and he just sets it up. Cherryo using that death main aggressively also opens up that door because that's his main damage at that point. So once that's down, you don't have to fear that Serqet a whole lot. And the Serqet prioritization, it hasn't just been Spacestation. We've seen a lot of teams all of a sudden start to really prioritize this selection.
Is that the healer worry?
Man,
is it the healer worry?
But think of it this way. I don't think that Serqet is that good against Hell or against Aphrodite, because Serqet is an all-in god. So yes, she has this all-in, now you have no healing, but if you're Aphrodite, you just Undying love it. And now Serqet's on top of your teammate, and they're not taking any damage, and you kill her for it. Same
Talking about damage.
For Hell.
Cherryo going to get some off there. Nice shot over the wall with a polymorph from Dardez, but just not enough to get the kill. We'll at least be able to soak most of that experience from that right-hand camp, though. And I do tend to agree with you there. I don't know why the focus towards Serqet is. I mean, is it because it's the flexibility option of running it in the duo lane? But even then, we've not really seen that too much this season.
No, it's really only been Obey that's done it consistently, I think, for inbound there. I think it is still prevalent and it's still possible to put in the support role. I don't think it's been bad, necessarily. Yeah. It's just been top 2, top 3 to
Cherryo, not aware of the situation that Adapting was around the corner, but Adapting just can't close the gap in time. Cherryo was completely out of mana there, so a risky play from Cherryo to go for. I think the blue buff did actually get stripped away because now Benji's back in lane, so the damage was done and now Adapting on an adventure. I think the last thing to really mention on the Serqet side, I guess it might be to do with all the Odin picks as of late, but Odin was banned this game, you know? Like, the mobility for a jungler to be able to play from the Odin is useful. I'm trying to just find more reasons for why we're seeing so much focus towards it.
I mean, Serqet still does the things she did well previously, well now. She still kills you really well early.
Sure.
She still puts a lot of pressure on your purification bead. She still kills tanks very well because she has true damage and prot shred in her kit. All of those things are still true. She still clears well with Deathbane, but level 1 clear is less important now because junglers are buying Hog. So it doesn't matter that she clears speed so much faster than everyone else because they catch up on backs with the Hog use. And it just doesn't have that same insane burst potential early game because of the change to the ultimate. Now you need to build a lot more power, and if you're building Serqet power, you're going to one-shot somebody, but you get insta-killed as soon as it happens. And so that sort of change, the fact that she can't build nearly as bruisery, I think is the real big change of this character, and why I'm surprised we still see her so much.
And the most interesting thing as well, this Geb pickup as well for Aror will really shut down of what some of Serqet's going to want to do. As you were saying, going to be aggressive early. They're going to look to try and all-in a character. Well, Geb Shield is a great proponent of stopping that. Red buff is coming up on this left-hand side for Radiance. They're going to get pressure in mid lane, and the 3 men will rotate there. Aror still a little bit off the pace and experience. He gave up a bit of this farm early on, it seems. And funny enough, Spacestation have a bit of advantage still in that dual lane for Vote at the moment.
And that's not what you expect up against the Ullr to be okay at this moment, basically, up against this Ullr, because it is so strong at this point in the game where you get this Transcendence. It's not as strong as it used to be because now you don't have the 10% CDR right away. You'd expect Hou Yi to be on the back foot a little bit. Maybe if this is a Horus over here for Aurora or Hercules, you're invading a lot of purple buffs. But with this Geb pick, it really does make sure that Aurora wants to be following where Cherryo is to shut down this Serqet initiation. I think that's why we see the Geb so early, because SSG locked in that Serqet very early on. They want to make sure that they get the Geb to, number one, take it away from iRaffer, who has a phenomenal Geb, and number two, just make sure that they've got something that can keep their carries up and healthy in the face of this early pressure that Cherryo's likely to be providing. But it is a trade-off. You lose some of that dual lane pressure that you normally expect from having the Ullr.
Adaptive, rotating quite around early on as well. Looking at this duo lane right now, won't be able to find a pick just yet, but just showing some presence around this left-hand side. And it's something Mifflin did say on the desk. They do like to play through Cyclone at the moment, Radiance. Try and get him big and strong through the early game, and then just allow him to continue to farm up, so when we get to those team fights, he can start to make an impact. But Raffer on your screen now, starting to invade the jungle with these Nene Kappas. And guess Kuzenbo's the next talking point, really, here, Ryan, is what is with the reason of the rise of Kuz? Has the love been just so good for him? Why is he back?
Yeah, I don't even think that his most recent buff is in yet, right? He's getting another buff
so either. Yeah.
next patch that helps him with his turn control, so to speak, on the 3. I think it's just a god that scales well into the late game. It's a very difficult god to kill. The fact that his passive makes him so tanky, gives him so much free mitigation, is really, really critical. It just feels like it's a god that you can't really all in effectively. Even for mages and for hunters, it's insurance against crit builds. It's still going to do damage to the mages. And he's got good enough CC and good enough disruption. He's got good kill potential, level 1 and 2 in the dual lane, which is important right now in the meta, as we kind of highlighted early on, as to why we're surprised the Geb is there as a selection. So if it's good late game, and it's good levels 1 and 2, then why wouldn't you start to see it? I think it makes some sense.
Ward placement on the map right now is all Space Station game, and look at all those red little dots just littered around the map. They're trying to keep full vision of these potential rotations coming out from Radiance and limit the options that Adaptive may have to find some sort of pressure. But all that ward placement, I mean, sure, we get a couple of free wards these days with that relic situation, but it still adds up in terms of gold. So they're just going to be careful how much you invest into that, but at the same time, ward's important, right? Like, keeping vision keeps track of everything.
Make sure that you're not losing as many buffs because you know exactly where they are, so that gold gets paid back pretty quickly, or it opens you up for invades where you can go and get more buffs on the enemy team because you know they might be on the other side, and then they pay for themselves that way as well. I think it's pretty hard to overward consistently. It's really only if you're buying too many wards and then a key early game Gold Fury skirmish or a red buff invade, you're sitting on a tier 2 item while your opposition's finished off their item. That's really the only time I think that overbuying can be a problem, but it doesn't seem like that's the case right now. Everyone looks pretty even in terms of where they are in their particular item builds.
Talking about item builds a little bit more, Spear of Desolation picked up already for Big Man, looking for a bit more cooldown reduction, so no anti-healing there, no Divine Ruin, which we've seen so much of, whereas Dardez has gone for that once again. I think Divine Ruin is semi-overlooked now and again, Ryan, for my liking. Like, the fact that passive's there for, you know, reducing healing, sure, there's not always going to be healers, but it's 15 pen, and a decent chunk of power too for the value.
Yeah, it's not a bad item by any stretch, and you've seen more of it this year, I think, than ever, just because of these purple boots and how important those are for the mid laners. And it's, well, if I'm already going lifesteal boots, I might as well go Bancrofts. And if I've got Bancrofts, I might as well go Typhons, because then I've got a lot of lifesteal. And that's why you're seeing a lot of Divine right now in the mid lane. This game in particular, it's really there for Benji on this King Arthur, because if King Arthur gets to spin on top of 3 of you, even with the nerfed Glad Shield this year, he's going to kill you all. He's going to be impossible to kill. You want to get this Divine. I've got no problem with Tingz going with this Spear of Desolation. I think that it is if you don't have a lot of lifesteal on the other side, Deso does feel a lot better. More power.
Cyclone's a bit far forward here, gets hit by the polymorph and all in too as August came into play, but Adapting answers back and takes out Cherryo. Those drums from Big Man were sounding, and the taunt was beautiful to set up Adapting for a second kill. Great response kill from Radiance there.
That was a wombo combo there. Shockwave straight into Wind Siphon. Cherryo and iRaffer getting whiplash from getting pulled all over the place there in the jungle. And then Big Man with a beautiful taiko drums over the wall. Cyclone doesn't use his beads right there.
Yeah.
I don't know if he was expecting to be able to jump out in between ticks of that Kuzenbo ultimate, but it never happened. He was just getting eaten alive by all that damage there between Cherryo.
I was definitely a little bit lost why Cyclone was there.
Rotation mid. Yeah, maybe oracles were coming up. He was looking for a rotation mid, and that's kind of what you want to do as Ullr. Clear your wave if your enemy isn't in lane. Go into axe stance and start looking for trouble in the jungle because you're the bigger trouble than whatever you're going to find.
Well, Big Man will be level 12 now, head back to base, just gets away from Cherryo there, who went for the Jotun's Wrath again in the jungle. We've seen a little bit more of him with this Serqet, using that Jotun's Wrath, but here's a little look at that play one more time. Beautiful Cataclysm out from Aror there, and the drums over the wall, Ryan, really just allowed the facilitation to come through. The wombo combo word you said was right in the money.
Yeah, Big Man is just in a perfect position in that moment. I mean, he's no chance he gets hit by any damage at all right there, and because of the vision that Aror and Adapting are providing, he's able to make an educated decision on what he wants to do. Do I need to use damage, or do I need to taunt in, knowing that Adapting's going to be able to finish off with autos as long as that player doesn't get to run away from him. Taunt is the right call. Finish off with one damage shot, let Adapting pick up the double and set up your Susano to carry you in the late game, because that's what Susano does best, is just 1v1, 2v1 people in the late game. Sam for Soccer just showed us earlier this week up against Sanguine just how potent this late Susano can be.
Well, gold is relatively even between the two teams at the moment. There's a slight experience lead, I'd say, for Radiance, specifically in the jungle. I mean, Adapting's got a 2-level lead already, and we've actually been saying his name a little bit more so in terms of the aggressive ganks. He does have 3 kills to his name, probably one of the reasons why he's got a bit more experience here, and at the moment, he's looking for this red buff invade. Radiance have a bit of pressure here.
And that Adapting's going to be the one to get it going, because he's level 11 right now. No surprise that he wants to be aggressive with this sort of lead. Cherryo down 2 levels. Cherryo the same level as Aror, that now a level down. This is never a good spot for any carry to be in, is to be down in XP compared to the enemy support.
And you just saw Benji just make a nice cheeky rotation out from the solo lane there, put a bit of pressure on towards Cherryo, and force Cherryo back to the safety of his own jungle. No follow-up available for Radiance in the area, but a second later could have been a bit of a different story. Now, though, Adapting going to head back towards his speed buff. He's got that Transcendence online and stacking away. Hydra's soon to follow through. And funny enough, talking about items a little bit more, I'm definitely intrigued by these support builds as of late, because we've got a bit of a split difference, I'd say. Some still going for the Thebes rush early on after boots, whereas some of them are starting to invest in a bit more magical defense. This Oni Hunted Spellbound Kasari start, with the variability of this, like, how do you see this? Is it the crowd control reduction you're looking for here, or?
The CCR is great against this team composition from Radiance for sure, and making sure that Cyclone doesn't get to all-in off you off the axe alone is really critical. But I think that it's very simple. Damage mitigation is nuts in this game. It is just so strong, and you already have damage mitigation with Kuzenbo passive, and doubling down on that early feels really good. It makes it, people look at your build, be like, oh, he doesn't have any health, only 100 coming from that Onis. We can kill this guy for free, and then they just do no damage to you, and it's not like Pen's gonna help them. It's mitigation. It's you can't do anything against that, and that's what makes this build really strong. I still think Thebes is a crazy good support item, but if you already have mitigation built in, I think doubling down on it with its Onis is good. Wouldn't be surprised to see iRaffer go for a Sovereignty, because that's a really strong item right now, and what would give him some good protection up against Cyclone and Adapting, who are both very strong at this moment. Could be saving Thebes for later, or could just pass on it altogether.
Adventure into the jungle of Space Station once again. 4 members grouped to Radiance to make sure they secure this red buff and leave town with the results. However, on the rotation out, Vote is trying to cut off an angle. Needs to be careful about being pinched himself. The rest of the team not really around to support in that scenario. So Radiance get in and get out of danger. relatively effectively there. And obviously that only is talk a little bit more so, Ryan. It's not just the Kuzenbo I've seen it on. So I think it's definitely like, you know, coming down to a little bit more of God specific at this point of maybe, you know, being worthwhile.
Yeah, we are seeing on Bacchus as well, I believe, a decent amount, and that's another god who's going to get into into the enemy team and be around everybody, and also be naturally very tanky because of his passive. It's just that, really, I've always said that I thought Spirit Robe is way underbought because damage mitigation is just nuts, and especially when it's in response to getting CC'd, which is how tanks die in this game, is they just get CC chained forever. Spirit Robe is like one of the craziest items in the game because it gives you CCR and damage mitigation and all prot and CDR. Like, what else could you possibly want out of an item like that? I would love to see iRaffer pick up a Spirit Robe later. He'd be capped on CCR. He'd be impossible to lock down. It's already a very slippery character in Kuzenbo, and he'd have so much mitigation that he would get knocked up by Aror and he wouldn't take any damage at all because of the Spirit Robe proc later on.
You can see the cameraman just showing there. Looks like it will be that sovereignty for iRaffer, as Aggro was talking about. Secondary relics are now coming online for everyone. Just iRaffer to return to base to pick his up. And that's almost a signal for me that we might see some fights around this Gold Fury area. Everyone will be feeling a little bit more confident. Nothing too surprising, though, in terms of the relic selections, mainly beads and Aegis. We have seen a bit more shell as of late towards the mid laners, which I'm a fan of. I don't know how everybody feels about it, but it can come into play. Just not sure against these compositions it will.
I like it a little bit more on assassins than mages, because mages, you die by a big margin, not by a little bit. Whereas assassins usually die like, oh man, if I just got one more auto off, I would have killed that guy. Shell lets you get that auto off. I don't think...
Blinking from Cherryo, trying to punish the red buff invade. Successful. Focus on adapting, but he's going to be okay. Just has to use the beads. iRaffer trying to discombobulate the team fight, and instead it's a raw pulled into hell, so to speak, from those suns raining down, and Vote gets credit for the kill. Radiance are punished for the red buff invade. Spacestation want more though. Back in again, forcing out the drums from BigManTingz. Big Man giving chases. Benji turns up in fray, but I'm not sure he can really make anything else happen. Is the Gold Fury going to get looked at?
I don't think by Radiance, even though they're the ones with the positioning right now. If anyone, it's going to be SSG, but with Benji rotating over, I think that's going to be a little bit too much of a threat for Spacestation to go for it. But that, if you want to know what Kuzenbo can do, it's right there, man. I mean, so much disruption in that team fight. And then, I mean, when Sobek is really good, everyone talks about how easy it is to kill people, because he's just serving people up on a silver platter over and over and over again. Well, Kuzenbo does the same thing. It's just you have to be behind them to push them around. You can't just pluck them behind you like that. But in that situation, it's better than something like a Sobek pluck, because Aror gets silenced for an eternity. He's got nothing he can do as the Geb, and he's just taken right into the teeth of Spacestation Gaming. And the CC chain potential here out of SSG's comp is really strong, because polymorphs aren't going to get affected by that diminishing returns. Sumo Slam, not affected by diminishing returns. So these CCs, no matter if they're hitting you early in the team fight or late in the team fight, are going to, you're just going to be holding that the entire duration, and that's really, really critical.
I think that's the big key as well. Water with Grave, so useful, but it's good with communication to let you know, team, you're going to use it. So Billies aren't necessarily wasted on targets that are going to get thrown around a little bit. Benji, though, stuck to this left-hand side for quite a while. iRaffer going to get aggressive with that Sumo Slam for a second. And still, Radiance getting aggressive around this red buff one more time. Nika is here, though, on that Jormungandr too. Neither really been able to do too much as of yet, but it looks like Radiance want to start a fight here. They're cheekily poking at the Gold Fury, trying to bring Spacestation in. Vote is just coming back from base, so Spacestation just holding, waiting for their whole team.
No beads for Vote for about 30 seconds and adapting for about 25, so watch where Cherryo is, and if Aror can give a shield to adapting when he goes in.
Blinking from Aror, Cataclysm connects, knocks up Vote too, but no follow-up is there. There's the follow-up after the fact, though, it's adapting, but this CC was just not long enough, so Vote can collapse and look towards adapting. Dardez does at least take his life before going down, but the trade-outs are huge, back and forth. Both the carries are dead, sorry, are still alive on both sides. Problem being now is, what can Vote do to stay alive against Benji? Cyclone also trying to deal with Nika. Meanwhile, Big Man can't get into the fray too low. Benji might be able to hunt him down here.
Benji's going to be tough to take down. Vote doing his best, but Benji going to find him. And now it's Cyclone and Benji up against Jorm. Nika can put out some pretty good damage right now, but I don't know if I like his odds.
And another kill going to go the way of Radiance at the tail end of this then. And Radiance can still look towards this Gold Fury, juggle the aggro back and forth, as long as you stay in the pit for the most part, especially with Big Man coming back. I don't think we're going to see iRaffer get here in time. A crazy fight. I'm not sure who I feel better about the situation. I guess Radiance, because they get the Gold Fury.
It's got to be Radiance, because they get the Gold Fury and the deicide. They trade 3 for 5 and get the objective at the very end. A pretty vast difference in that team fight recap as far as gold and experience going their way. It's reflected in the charts as well. And Aror starts off that fight with a really, really nice Cataclysm, but then he kind of gets lost in the middle of that because he's getting CC'd by Yorm. Yorm then dives past. He's getting CC'd by Cherry. Aror can't find where he wants to go in shield because Big Man and Cyclone are so far from him in the backline because Spacestation was able to separate them really nicely. So then Aror goes, all right, well, I might as well go shield Kennet, who's in their backline. But at that point, Adapting had just taken too much damage. It takes too much time for him to get there to shield him. And it buys, I mean, Adapting still kills Dardez, but it takes Aror a little bit too much time to find where he needs to be in that team fight. BigManTingz continues to impress me, though, in the mid lane. I mean, he is in the right position in that team fight the entire time. Accurate with the Taiko drums, takes as much damage as is necessary, and then gets out of dodge, doesn't end up overstaying in that engagement at all. And the fact that Benji gets to go until the very end when there's only 2 people left at full HP means that he's got plenty of time to get whittled down. It takes King Arthur a little bit sometimes to kill these hunters, but as soon as he doesn't have that jump, he's food for Benji.
And BigManTingz as well. Level 20 already in this game. He was 20 at 20 minutes in. And he was the question mark on this Radiance team, at least for me and maybe some of the fans at home too. He's the only one that's not won a world title, right? So straight away, you're like, well, how's he going to perform on this team? He's stepping up and showing, just like his interview showed as well. Benji needs help, though, and he's not going to find him. He's trying to buy a bit of time for Geb to get in with a shield, and the shield's there from Aror. Knockup's good to buy a bit more time for him, and still Benji walks away with Argus in tow. The casualty might just be Aror here, but Adapting's here to pick up some pieces. Great Typhoon towards Dardez. The shield, self-shield comes out, but it won't be enough to stop Adapting, and Cyclone right behind helps to pick up pieces too. Now Nika forced to ultimate. What a crazy play. How Benji lived is all down to Aror.
Aror doing the support stuff, man. No fear whatsoever. Blinking into 3-4 people, getting a huge Cataclysm, a massive shield as well for Benji. But it's really Adapting's damage that has been impressive. He finds his way on the Dardez in the peel there from iRaffer. Just wasn't good enough.
FG coming in, Cherryo jumping in early, sees the FG, goes for the damage instead, gets all in and trades out at least with Aror, and now Nika in the pit might be able to steal this one away. Spacestation get the Fire Giant, and with that the regen might help them out. The Ricochet won't land from Vote, instead Benji all-ins him, jumped on with the Thunder Crash from BigManTingz too, and Vote looking for the pick onto Cyclone, ends up losing his life. Only Nika ends up with that Fire Giant.
Man, just a rough situation for Radiance there because they get 2 kills. They're already on the right side of the map. We may as well just go and get Fire Giant. We're already here, but so were Spacestation, and they knew that that was a threat. A good rotation in, and this is a perfect example of a player knowing his job in that moment. Cherryo understands that his job in that moment is not to steal fire. It's not to kill the entire enemy team. Cherryo's job is to die in that moment. His job is to get in there and absorb cooldowns, delay DPS onto the objective, and he actually makes a sick play by pulling Aror into the fire knockup and into the fire pit that gets him killed. And then at this point, when it's a 3-on-2 and there's just a bunch of abilities coming down, that's just messy, man. That's a 50-50 coin flip on where that objective is going to go. Radiance gets a little bit unlucky that it doesn't go their way, but only in the sense that their coin flip didn't go well. I mean, that is no better than a 50-50, if not just straight up in Spacestation's favor because of the Vote ult.
Yeah, that really was a case of Cherryo being a first responder, setting the scene and going, okay, I can't contest this FG, it's too high right now. I'm going to run distraction, I'm going to try and buy time for my team. He did just that, and the replay showed, honestly, I couldn't tell, it was still Nika or Vote. The Suns were raining down, Vote did throw an auto to the end. It might have been a bit of damage out of Nika too, but still, Spacestation find a small lifeline, I would say there, with how the state of this game has been going so far. This Space Station team's been struggling for me, Ryan. This is not the team we saw last year. They're really just not on the same pace we once saw. I'm not sure what that is. I know they'll be looking to improve it, though.
Yeah, they've been a little bit underwhelming. It's only because we expected so much. And maybe that's a little bit unfair.
I think that's true, yeah.
I think we expected this team to be top 2 at the very least at the beginning of the year because they had so little change coming into this season. It just hasn't been the case.
All right. Frontline tanks get Cataclysm, forces them both to ult defensively, but now fall back to the safety of their teammates. But now their teammates may be under a bit more pressure if Radiance want to continue the aggression. Instead, they fall back to the Gold Fury here, Radiance, as now Raph is forced to blink in. Radiance get the Primal Fury on the left-hand side, though. Cherryo did get a hold of Adapting and force Adapting back a bit more. Still continuing to give chase. Should and will find the kill. CycloneSpin looking for the turnaround. Aurora Shockwave would be enough. At the same time, though, Benji got left isolated alone a little bit at the tail end. So Vote takes his life. 2 for 1 in favor of Space Station, but Radiance get the Fury.
But now it's Space Station with priority on the map. There should be a tier 1 tower in mid for them. I mean, I like the way that they're starting to fight. Look at the team fight recap. They get more damage off in that fight, and it's because of their great ability to create space between Kuzenbo and Jorm and Serqet. There's so much mobility and AoE that it's difficult to really take a fight on Radiance's terms. It's Space Station that's going to be able to dictate those terms. And Adapting's had a great game so far, but I do have a beef with this build in that it has no pen right now at all. The shifter shield for Cherryo makes him incredibly tanky to Adapting when he gets below that threshold, and we saw it right there where it takes Adapting too long to get that kill onto Cherryo. iRaffer has a sovereignty, so any carry that's near iRaffer, we saw it on top right by that speed buff where he eventually chases down Dardez and gets the kill, but Dardez lives the sliver of HP because there is no flat pen in this build for Adapting. All of these items are really strong that he has. They're all good assassin items. But I just don't think there's enough value in the flat pen. He's not putting enough value in the flat pen and how valuable that is as a power stat. It's 2-3x whatever power would be on that flat pen. It's really, really important.
I will say, I do love the adjustment out of Cherryo, though. He realizes his team's struggling and he realizes Adapting is causing a problem. So instead of looking for the backline carries, he's hunting Adapting. He's trying to find Adapting's flanks a little bit more than did so around that Fury area. If he can continue to do that and isolate this 1v1 assassin combo situation, especially with the build talk you just did there, this might work out well for Cherryo and Space Station if they can try and answer back. And right now, they're going to do just that at this tier 1 tower.
I agree until right now where Adapting backs the base and buys Heartseeker, and now he has flat pen and a massive spike in terms of damage output. And this is where this matchup turns. We actually saw this exact matchup with Rival and Sanguine, where Panatom was playing the Serqet and Sam was playing the Susano. And as soon as this item purchase happened for Sam, the entire matchup changed, and Sam won every single 1v1 after the fact. Now Cherryo is a different style of Serqet player than Panatom. It's not 100% guaranteed that Susano is going to win it, but I think it's pretty favored for Adapting now if Cherryo wants to try and take this 1v1.
Well, so far, Radiance have been dictating the pace for the most part. They're not scared of initiating onto the frontline tanks of Space Station in terms of that Jormungandr and that Kuzenbo, trying to burn those ultimates early, use some of those relics, and it kind of keeps Space Station pinned back a little bit more so if a fight breaks out after the fact. Just keep an eye on Aror. He's the real engager we're seeing quite often with these blink initiations. Space Station's going to watch their positioning, specifically on that front line now, just to make sure they both don't get hit by the same thing. Problem is, some of those choke points definitely make it awkward.
The great ward coverage on the backside here by Space Station makes it pretty hard for Radiance to find an effective flank. They kind of have their flanks covered. The one that isn't is if Adapting were to go up around those back harpies on the left-hand side. I think he might be able to find a window there, but that would make him pretty far extended from the rest of his team. It's not a great spot for him to be. And taking a look at iRaffer's build again, by the way, he's gone into the Stone of Gaia again. I believe he built this earlier on, or at least we saw it recently.
Yeah, Friday.
I love it on this god, number one, and number two, against this composition for Radiance, because they've got this knockup from Aror that's going to be hitting iRaffer at some point, accidentally, basically, and he's going to start getting a lot of regen. And don't forget that Kuzenbo passive is interrupted by knockups. The water bowl, you lose all the water because you get knocked up. So now instead of getting a huge negative every time you get knocked up, at least getting a whole bunch of regen all of a sudden, and there's no anti-heal on the other side because no one else has any lifesteal, so you're going to get a ton of regen from this item.
I like that even more because of the passive falling off, you know? It's kind of like, well, how do I solve that equation, right? If I'm losing it, how do I gain it back or make it less of a deficit? Don't forget as well, Adapting does have that Typhoon that is a knock-up as well. So they've got a couple more options here on the side of Radiance to potentially trigger that. I guess, does Benji's ultimate do that as well? I guess it would. I've not seen the interaction, but I guess it would.
I think because it's knockups and grabs that proc Gaia, right? And I believe Excalibur's Wrath is a grab. So I believe that would proc it in that moment. Wind Siphon does. Oh my god,
that's a wall of text, Doug. Get it off my screen, Doug. I can't read all that. We're not here. We're not Wikipedia-ing right now. Come on.
Yeah, we don't got time for this, man. There's going to be action at least 3 minutes from now.
We need to make the tooltips just read dead quick, thank you, or out of combat, cheers. Like, just something like that. Simplistic.
Cheers.
I actually thought for a second that Vote might have just managed to find that ricochet shot and steal that away, but Radiance will get that Fury. And now Radiance head towards the right-hand side. Pressure back towards the FG again. Goal differential is about 6,000. The experience doesn't matter too much right now. It's only the support. Speaking of the support, it's Raffer under pressure here, knocked up, and now has to use the ultimate to get away from Aror. Aror uses the Cataclysm, forces Nika to use the ultimate. This isn't the best case for Radiance here right now, but Spacestation not really in a position to help out. Raffer fall back to base. Radiance have good control to head to the FG.
In a vacuum, if you would have asked me, would you trade Cataclysm for Watery Grave and the World Serpent, I'd say yes, but with the way that played out, I feel like Aror didn't get as much value from that ultimate as he wanted.
Yeah. Fire Giant, just above half health. Cherryo in, looks at CycloneSpin. Immediate shield comes out from Aror there. Now Benji forces Raffer back for a second. Raffer a little bit worried about being aggressed on again, but the dance is solid. Just keep an eye on Adapting. You can see him round there, trying to wrap round the back, blinks in on towards Dardez, uses the ultimate early on. Beads expended from Dardez there as well, and Adapting gets credit for the kill. Raffer on the front line trying to stand strong, reflects some damage back, but his health bar's dropping. Thunder crashing from Tingz at the right time, secures the kill for Aror, and Benji still round the back, keeping Cherryo honest, but Cherryo now back in the pit, looks for a target, gets the ultimate off, shield again from Aror, still won't keep him alive. The poison spreads, but the poison spread's not going to be enough, as now Cyclone finds that pick on Cherryo for a double kill.
But I think Adapting's too low to try and chase out Vote, even though he's the lone member of Spacestation Gaming. You called Adapting on that backside. That time it wasn't warded from Spacestation. He finds the perfect angle right on top of Dardez, who didn't have his Argus ready for the knockup to drop, which is how you really peel for yourself often as Hera. But the way that Adapting and Big Man played that was so impressive to me, because Big Man immediately goes up into the Taiko drums and just starts putting damage out down that corridor. Adapting used the Wind Siphon, but Dardez beats it, but he drops that jet stream on top of him and then backs up and waits, and then teleports in at the last moment, and with his auto attack and Big Man's Taiko drums proc coming through, they take Dardez from 3/4 HP to 0 before he could ever use that Aegis. That was really impressive.
Two men doing the FG, and they'll get it as Raffer blinks over the wall of Roar there. You saw him blink towards Vote for a second, just trying to buy time, force him back. But Vote didn't actually use a relic there, he just stood tall. Still though, Radiance now have the FG for the first time this game. First FG of the game did go the way of Space Station, stripped away. But can they capitalize on this lead now? The gold is in their favor for sure. And now with the FG wrapped around their waist, it's the enhanced Fire Giant too. I'm just wondering what Space Station can really do on defense here.
I mean, Space Station's defense isn't that inspiring because Hera is not a great god at clearing waves that are coming into your Phoenix. I mean, you've got your Polymorph that can do it, but then your best CC tool is down. That's a little bit of a window that Radiance can certainly capitalize on. That's a cooldown that players are going to keep track of. Okay, Hera 2 is down, now I can Geb ult. You know, now I can blink in and Geb ult because I won't get Polymorphed right after I'm done channeling that. Ho Yi ult is good, but it's one-time use. Nika's your best defensive tool here. Nika is always impressed me with his pool management. It's things like this. Just toss that pool out. It's going to give you a Soul Reaver proc. It's going to give you an E-Stab proc. It's going to give you a Jada or a Stone of Binding proc. And it's going to slow down their minions. It's going to slow down their siege. And good Yorm players will just litter that whole entrance with those pools. But that doesn't seem like it's enough to really make me feel confident about Space Station's chances.
definitely seen some susceptibility to this Jormungandr though this year. Those changes towards his passive, making him take a little bit more if he does get CC'd, has definitely come back a little bit to haunt the Jormungandr. Raffer on the front line though, eats a ton of damage but still goes down. Cyclone ate a huge amount from that reflex, I feel like, in the Thorns too, but not enough to find a kill just yet. With Raffer off the table and this FG ticking away, Cyclone could just go back in the jungle, sustain off a camp with the axe stance, and then look to re-engage one more time with Radiance on this left-hand side.
And he's done just that. The one weakness here on this siege, though, from Radiance is that they don't have a wave coming in mid anytime soon. It's going to take a little bit for that to get there.
But Cherryo's wrapped around the back, trying to come in from behind, so just keep an eye on the minimap. Still, though, it's Nika under pressure first of all, and BigManTingz gets dove in on by Cherryo, who did flank from behind, finds the kill. Cyclone pays attention there. It means the frontliners are kind of left of their own devices. Aror and BigMan down as Cherryo causing interference in the backside. Radiance have to back away. Only Vote and Cherryo left alive. Cyclone, though, just realizing how much damage he can do at the moment with that enhanced fire giant, and no minions even there.
Smart by CycloneSpin, but now he's got to be careful. I guess Benji is the cavalry in this situation, so he doesn't have to be too careful with that teleport back in from the King Arthur. But knowing that that enhanced FG means you don't have to care about backdoor protections, you can just walk in and start auto-attacking that Phoenix down. Vote realizes that he can't really step up in that moment. But Cherryo has really identified what I think has been the biggest problem for Spacestation in this game, and that's been this Raijin pickup for Tingz.
Cherryo jumps in looking for a kill, but instead he just eats a ton of damage, and Cyclone will get credit for the kill again. And I'm going to mention it, we've not spoke about Cyclone too much in this game, because the rest of Radiance have been playing so well. But this team's looking way better than I expected for the start of the season, man. Like, all of them just seem to be stepping up way further ahead. The amount of years we've had these freaking super teams up here that never appear at the end of the day, this is the first one that I'm like, legitimately like, hang on a second, I'm not giving them the credit they probably deserve for just how good they are looking.
They're the best team in the league right now, Radiance. I really don't think that through 3 weeks in one game here, I don't think that there's any other team that has impressed nearly as much as this Radiant squad. They're the only undefeated team left. They look like they aren't going to lose in game 1 at the very least, so this game isn't over, only one Phoenix down. You feel like Radiance just has this different aura about them where they have a team composition every game that works pretty well together, and they're not doing anything crazy, it's just Smite, you know, they're just playing
Vote
Smite
had
well.
to blink, so beads and leap away, but as soon as he landed, the Aegis didn't even buy him enough time. That's going to be a tier 2 tower, and that makes it a little more awkward now for this Phoenix defense. If Radiance even want to look for it here, I expect they will so, because the Fire Giant's not up for another 30 seconds. Without Votes, some of their damage output on the side of Space Station does fall down. Aror going to tank up the front line as the minions now come in.
And they've got Oni waves coming through as well. These are half Oni wave. Not everything there, but some of their minions are enhanced.
Cherryo will at least chase out, adapting for a second. Aror's health bar relatively low. Ultimate pop from Dardez there, looking for August to drop on Cyclone, but Cyclone read the situation well and just leaps away. Space Station, though, do at least hold their base, and Vote's death isn't going to really come back to haunt them just yet. But at the same time, Radiance are falling back, ready for the Fire Giant.
Close, though. I mean, that right side Phoenix is on its last legs. One more auto attack would have done it, but really good recognition by Cyclone of what Dardez was going to do in that moment. Drop that Argus down, and if he gets hit by that knock-up, maybe he has to pre-beads, but then he's going to take so much damage he probably dies, and it's more important to get this enhanced Fire Giant than to worry so much about that right side Phoenix, because if you get this enhanced Fire Giant, that right side Phoenix is no tall task at all. It's very, very simple.
I'm just wondering if we see Space Station try and contest this. Votes relics are on cooldown for a while. Raffer the closest to the Fire Giant pit, and he's going to take a little gander. I'm not sure if he's going to do much more than that. He will blink in, funny enough. Tries to use the reflect damage to return some damage back to Cyclone. We saw the damage it did earlier, but Raffer doesn't make that pay as worthwhile as he wants to. Fire Giant is reset, though. Small window ball for Space Station. Nika was out left, pushing out the minion wave, and now teleports into the fray. But Adapting is now taking out Raffer. Nika dunks on him with the Willed Serpent. Up, down a couple of times, and Adapting could get a hit again, and will do so. Cherryo credited with the kill, and now Space Station trying to turn this around.
Ting's got to jump away. No beads left for him, and Benji's still healthy, but there's a lot of members of Space Station looking at him.
The damage is good, but not enough to take Benji completely out of the fight. Radiance fall back, just losing Adapting for Raffer. All in all, not too bad of a situation for Spacestation to stay in this game. I mean,
No,
if
they
Rapper doesn't
defend.
go in there, it's kind of similar to what you said about Cherryo earlier, right? It's his not job to steal it, it's to try and stop it.
His job is to die in that moment. And I think that one of the things that made this Space Station team so successful last year is that they have so many members that are willing to play that way. I think that that's a really key part of a successful SMITE team. Ataraxia used to tell me this all the time when talking about some of his favorite teammates. Twig was one that he would always mention in particular. Maybe that's a little bit memey now with the way that he's been playing mid, but he's a player that's not afraid to die, and so many times that is the optimal SMITE play, is to go in there and sacrifice your life to help out the team.
Fire Giant just below half health here. Vote and Dardez, the only two on the scene. They've got to be relatively careful because if those carries die, could be an awkward situation for them. It does delay the Fire Giant for a second or two. Not really long enough for Space Station to get back in. Vote did get that ricochet off, but keep an eye on Cherryo. Really trying to get in range using both his mobility skills to close the gap. That blink is available. But the run away from Radiance, the back in, was all grouped up nicely. No one got isolated there. The assassin couldn't get in to punish.
And just too many ultimates still up for Radiance in that moment. I mean, you still have Tycho Drums, you still have Typhoon, you still have Excalibur's Wrath. That's not going to be an easy team fight for you, even knowing that Aror had already used that Cataclysm. Now Radiance get to try their hand once more at breaking this base, and last Fire Giant was enhanced as well, so it's not like there's a massive difference this time around in comparison to what they had before, but you still feel like now that they've gotten there's no boots left for Radiance. They've been able to get a lot of farm. They've been able to sell all their boots and use those elixirs of speed. Meanwhile, Space Station, they all still have their boots. They all still need to get that true 6th item. It's not the end of the world necessarily, but that is a pretty big difference in power level.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I wasn't keeping an eye, honestly, on that consumable slot, so I'm not sure if they did buy those power potions instead, which we've seen a little bit more of this season, just to try and equal things out. But I did notice that Cherryo did sell his Spirit Robe there, went for the Magi's Cloak instead. He wants to avoid some of the CC. Left-hand Phoenix under threat from Aror with that Cataclysm. Aror eats a ton of damage, stunned in place by the Ricochet. Sun's raining down, and still the Geb stands tall. He's going to survive for the time being. But a lot was invested, it felt like, there for a second from Space Station. Funny enough, tell a lie, Audible is still alive as Raph is going to pull Cyclone in. Cyclone did use his beads and the shield from Aror was used at the same time. Big Man sounds the drums of war, but can't find a prime target. Instead, Rapper's dragging Benji into the pit again, but Benji's just as tanky. Adapting tries to get towards Dardez, but can't get the damage out. Benji's on low health. Everybody on Radiance trying to run away. Space Station are doing a damn good job on defense here.
Just so much disruption. It's like, okay, we finally lived through Vote's ultimate. What's next? We get hit by Watery Grave, and then we try to initiate again, and Cherryo's going to be there, or this Yorm ultimate's going to be there. There's just so much disruption from Space Station that that Radiant's having a tough time getting this Phoenix.
Well, that weakened Phoenix finally falls this time round as Benji blinks on in towards Vote to pressure. Vote didn't panic though, no relics used there. Really cool to see that actually, because I was expecting a relic burn at the least, worried about the all-in. Plays it safe, Radiance get that weakened Phoenix again. Taller task though with this middle Phoenix. Adapting has that ultimate available. Auror's is back up. Auror's blink is also available. Keep an eye on the gap.
But beads are still up for the carries, both Dardez and Vote. And while Cherryo doesn't have his beads, he has his Magi's. So it's still not a bad position for him to be in. This is not one yet for Radiance. If Space Station de-decides them here, it's 43 minutes in. There's been a lot of game time so far. They could end.
Benji going to lead the team in, and that was Jormungandr trying to keep the Aror in combat. Auror's now got aggro, so can't really blink initiate. Into the backline goes Cherryo, but a quick response with that shield as Adapting does take down Cherryo, take down Dardez, but dies to Cherryo in the process. Vote forced back to the fountain, and that's just free time for Radiance to take down that right-hand Phoenix. They're going to the pro room, Ryan. Can they do this here?
It's still 4 members standing strong. Nika going to use that World Serpent just to force everybody back. Radiance at least got an ultimate for their aggression.
Oh, Cherryo took a ton of damage from Cyclone there. He's forced back again, but good enough, at least, I guess, from Space Station. Radiance can't go in an end right now, but the damage has most certainly been done with this Fire Giant. They take the left Phoenix, the right one, and they're looking at the middle here.
Still only 10 seconds left on this buff. They don't have a lot of time. Rapper and Nika doing a good job frontlining, but look at the damage from Tingz and Cyclone.
And as soon as Cherryo goes in to try and slow it down, the shields are there from Aror once more. Benji still frontlining, allowing CycloneSpin to take down iRaffer for his 8th kill of the game. Middle Phoenix down. Into the Titan room they go. No minions though, boys. A couple of babies coming up the middle. Ooh, Radiance to play it safe. I'm not surprised, to be fair.
Yeah, I mean, Dardez is coming up. He doesn't have relics, but you know he's going to have ult. Tingz has his ult, and that Titan's really, really squishy with nothing on the map to help defend it. But it doesn't feel like a necessary risk right now for Radiance. I mean, if you get wiped there, I don't know if you straight up lose the game because you're putting enough pressure on the enemy Titan with fire minions that Spacestation's going to have to spread out and clear fire waves. But you're going to lose a lot of your momentum.
Yeah.
As it stands, why not just back up, get all your buffs, buy some 3K pots, and CycloneSpin at the very least has one of those in inventory, get another enhanced fire. Left side Phoenix might be up by then. That's still only one Phoenix. You're still going to be able to keep your waves pushed everywhere else, and then you can try and end the game that way.
We have definitely seen a little bit more talk about whether you should end the game or not in a couple of these SPL games. Sanguine, for example, a lot of people saying they were a bit shy of pulling the trigger now and again. But at times like Radiance there, I think the greater option was chosen. Radiance going to get an enhanced fire giant now. Once again, the 3rd of the game. With all 3 Phoenixes down, barreling down the right-hand side with these fire minions, seems like the play to me. What's the play from Spacestation really here, Ryan? Just hope for the best of the Titan gets crit or something. He needs a Deathbringer, right? Can we give him a Deathbringer?
You embezzle money into your Titan right now. You give him all the extra cash you have and hope he can buy Rod and Deathbringer because he doesn't have to follow any of the rules.
I just don't think that you can ready now, by the way.
Yeah, of course. I don't think anyone from Radiance can really be allowed to get into the throne room. I think Spacey's got to take a fight outside of the Titan because just the incidental damage is too much.
And there's the fight outside of the Titan. August dropped on Benji, taking him out. Focus was big man and at the same time adapting, but Cyclone was there to make sure Cherryo couldn't find the kill. The disruption from Nika's okay. It's not enough to slow down the advance of Radiance as Cyclone gets a double kill. Big man picks himself up another 2, and Nika can only watch on, the giant worm he is, as the rest of Radiance don't really care. They're going for the Titan. Game 1 is going to Radiance. And honestly, that was relatively clean from this super team.
They look great, man. And I think that this is not the way you expect a composition like this to go. I mean, adapting gets so far ahead early on. You've got Ullr over there in the duo lane. Of course, Cyclone's going to play aggressive, right? But I really think Mifflin hit the nail on the head during the death segment is that with this new Ullr build where it's just find the pen tree, build everything, and then build a Heartseeker, he's basically a mage come late game. He's doing just ability damage like a mage. And there we see the weakness of this Serqet jungle that we talked about 43 minutes ago. He hops on top of Adapting's head and Cyclone goes, cool, 3 on that spot, 1 on that spot. That's 1k damage that Cherryo takes, and you just can't withstand that with the type of build that he had.
Team as a whole as well. I mean, looking at what Adapting did that game, I think his early game was fantastic. He really set up his lanes to succeed. He got good for the goose early on, and then the rest of the team rallied around him, played really well. Full credit to Radiance game 1. Let's get it back to the death, though, see what they have to say.
So it's a little bit longer, but it's clinical nonetheless from Radiance. Only 1 death on CycloneSpin in that long lane on the Hunter roll as well. And in a long game like this, you need to be comfortable while you're playing, and no better way to do it than with Maxonomic, our seat sponsor here. For the SPL, you can use code SMITEMAX and get $50 off. So when you're in those lengthy Smite games, you're pushing 40, 50, an hour long in your games. Make sure you're gaming in comfort. NeedForSeatUSA.com. SmiteMax is your $50 off code. And you know who hasn't been sitting in their seat, Mifflin? Our boy Lodros in chat. He's approaching 900 sit-ups, so hats off to him as well. But let's look at this game and how Radiance was able to pull out the win. I think I echo what Hindu Man says there, and it's adapting, striking early, and really snowballing the rest of this game.
It's adapting, striking early, but it's CycloneSpin striking hard and fast. These two propelled the gameplay, and that's exactly what Radiance has been doing the entirety of the year. They like playing through adapting, they like playing through Cyclone, and it's been facilitated completely. I mean, combined KD between the two of them, 21 and 6. That's absolutely nuts. Spacestation is going to need to start allocating some resources towards allowing these guys to not get insanely far ahead every single game. It's a bit of a crazy idea, but maybe leaving CycloneSpin unchecked might not be the best play.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like the move there, and I think BigManTingz as well. I mean, the slash line isn't, go crazy out of your mind, but at 38k damage, the Raijin had top damage here in this game. But I still, this all goes back to adapting for me. I mean, you look at some of the jungle priority in the ban phase for SSG. Susano started to become one of those picks where these junglers, the players themselves that want to get in, stay aggressive, duel, try to find these picks, can still move into it and play it. So I love the pickup here for adapting, and it seemed to work out.
It does. Susano is a god that just absolutely frags out in the late game, but his early game doesn't suffer. The second level 5 comes online, similar to some of these gods like Hunbots. He has insane kill and team fight potential. The pick potential from Susano incredibly high. The mobility so good. Adapting used it to maneuver around the jungle very well, get his farm online, and as well just get to these team fights instantly. I mean, the first replay we saw there was a double kill off of a re-engage from Radiance, and that's exactly what you expect from a guy who's able to just maneuver around completely uncontested.
And I will say, after that game, highest KDA in the league, team-wise, goes over to Radiance. They steal it away from Sanguine, our stats page, SMITE Pro League. Wow, SMITEProLeague.com gets updated effectively after every single game, and Radiance unseating Sanguine as the highest KDA team in the league. Not surprising, though, Mifflin, from what we've seen from them. They haven't lost a game yet, and they're going to look to make it 2 here up against SSG. But I think it's important to look at the flip side of the coin. If you're SSG, what do you maybe change here in this pick ban phase?
Shift your draft towards early game aggression. I want you taking Ullr away from Cyclone first off. Don't give adapting Susano again. Start picking something that can get involved in that long lane very quickly. I would like a high mobility jungler for Cherryo. Maybe something like a Thor. Maybe we see a run back of the Thanatos from earlier today. A global ultimate that at least applies pressure even when you're not even trying to gank, because you just have to be ever cognizant of the fact that maybe I'm going to get Anvil of Dawn here. Maybe CycloneSpin doesn't have the freedom to move through the enemy jungle, move through their own jungle even. You just got to slow down the farm from these hyper carries somehow, some way. Maybe pick a support for SSG that facilitates the late game a little bit better. If they're going to take your Geb away from iRaffer, you still have Khepri available. You still have Kumbhakarna, something that can just really lock down these hyper carries.
I agree, and I like your emphasis on the jungle there, because not only does Radiance have the highest team KDA after Game 1 in the league, Adapting has the highest individual player KDA in the league after Game number 1, just showing the impact that he's able to have. Thor banned out by SSG, so at least a little bit of that same mindset that you're bringing up, maybe that you wanted to see out of SSG here in Game number 2. Thor taken away, Hoonbats by Radiance as well. But CycloneSpin on that Ullr was so impactful in Game 1. He had 10 kills, he died a single time, and Radiance are just going to go right back to it.
Maybe SSG knows something that I don't, because just watching the game as a fan, as an analyst, CycloneSpin was on a tear. I wouldn't imagine ever giving him that Ullr again. Instead it goes through. It could flex towards the mid lane. Maybe the Radiance shows off a little bit of their god pools just for the fun of it. Xball getting picked up. That's interesting. That global ultimate's going to be able to remove some of the vision, make it easier for ganks to come online. I like that.
Yep.
It just, whether or not we get a mobile jungler from SSG to really facilitate that ultimate, that's what we're looking for.
Now, Mifflin, I have to bring it up. We've put a lot of stock in this Yemoja conversation today. She's gone through a couple of the ban phase. She'll be picked up by SSG here. 17% pick rate, pretty hefty ban rate, but a 17% win rate on this Yemoja. It seems like when she is able to make it through, it's just not connecting at all.
And by no fault of the god itself, it's still an incredibly potent tool. Yemoja has healing, she has humongous walls she can throw up to lock off entire sections of the map. Mobility for your team, similar to what Yanis can do, creating these portals for you to jump through. There's so much that this god can bring, as well as a ton of long-range CC. It's just that she's been such a high-priority pick for so long. All these top-tier teams now have strategies to play against and around her, that it's not looking like it's really worth dedicating that slot.
Yeah, correlation, causation, definitely a conversation to have around Yemoja as well, whether it's born out of her or just the circumstances in which she's normally played. SSG will look to go against the grain on the Yemoja win rate. And now Amaterasu locked in, 3rd overall here for SSG. Jormungandr in as well, so presumably both solo laners for both teams. And I think that opens up a different priority here for SSG in the 2nd round of banning. Thor for their 3rd ban in Phase 1, but now for their 1st ban in the 2nd phase, take away the Susano, a jungle ban there from Radiance as well. So I don't mind either of these teams kind of prioritizing what still needs to be picked.
Yeah, banning out that Susano, I mean, best play I've seen all
works.
day. You can't let Adapting get away with that. Getting rid of the Kali from Radiance, that's interesting. We haven't really seen SSG prioritize that god, whereas we know Adapting is very comfortable on it. Maybe they just have been scrimming a lot, and they know what SSG is going to be looking for. It would fit their comp incredibly well. I imagine I would have preferred to see some more of these global ultimates banned out, knowing that Thanatos has been getting picked up a little bit more. But Camazotz still available as well. That's interesting to point out. No pick, though.
Good point. Good point. Camazotz makes his way through 10 total bans here. Not locked in just yet. I wonder if that has to do with the fact that the solo laner's already in, but it is important to point out with Camazotz, he has been flexed to that jungle, something that Radiance and SSG presumably both need here. Poseidon, 3% pick rate so far here in the SPL. Very low. That's got to be maybe just a single game, but has won the 1 or 2 games that he's been played in. What's your take on the Poseidon?
Poseidon is a god that is, all right, look, UCC whoever I'm looking at, I'll drop a Kraken on them, they're probably going to die, or Poseidon can rotate throughout the jungle very easily when his tide meter is full. He's got a ton of movement speed, more movement stim on his 2nd ability means that he can get to these fights very quickly. It's a decent pickup, but that choreographed damage, that telegraphed rather, in the Kraken is very easy to avoid. Yeah.
Definitely. You brought up Thanatos. Hercules, we've seen what Hercules can do earlier today, and we all know, great at controlling games, great at providing damage, and good setup. You brought up Thanatos, and it's not going to be Thanatos. It's going to be Camazotz instead here for Radiance. What a world we live in, where Camazotz is the 10th pick here in this draft, and I'm going to assume, it's never safe to assume, but I'm going to assume that goes to Adapting in the jungle.
That's a fair assumption to make. Adapting so good at this god. If you ever watch his stream, he's running it in ranked. He makes very good usage of the additional power from his 1. The raw aggression that Camazotz in the jungle affords you is insane. Levels 3 through 5, no one can contest this god out of jungle. If he comes into your lane, your really only option is to run away.
This is a battle of the 3% pick rate, 100% win rate gods for SSG. Poseidon, Cabrakan both fit into that category. What do you make of the SSG team comp here trying to bounce back in Game 2?
I like the comp in so far as individual pieces. Every single one of these gods does something incredibly well. It's how it's going to fit cohesively. Cabrakan finds a stun, you drop a Kraken on it. Amaterasu's diving the backline with assistance from Cabrakan. I mean, there's a lot of question marks with that comp.
A lot of pieces that'll look to make a complete picture here for SSG in Game 2. Can Radiance close it out? We'll go down to Hindu Man to find out.
Thanks so much, Dave. Yeah, Aggro joining me again for game number 2 here. Radiance got off to a flyer last game. Let's see what they can do here. Definitely the talk is the Yemoja, but also Poseidon back in for a second. Hello. Is that specific to deal with Raijin?
Yeah, maybe you feel like because of his immobility and Taiko drums, that last time Raijin was super meta, that was a big conversation, is we love picking big mage.
That's the first time on a death segment where I feel like I just admitted like
or the Scylla ult or a Zeus ult or something like that. Like those are the really big ultimates that you want to use against the Raijin when he's using Taiko drums. I don't know that that's really worthy of a Poseidon pick. I just don't feel like Poseidon has really recovered from losing Spear of the Magus.
964. Wow, we're getting there, Lodros. We're getting there. Aror, though, back on his Hercules one more time. Back to the fray again. Nobody can ever ban this away, I feel like. It's always going to be something that Aror's going to have in his back pocket. What a crazy player to be able to go from, you know, Hercules.
Oh, he get it!
Oh, he got it in a Pro League Game 2. The Earthbreaker Blink combo. Just a shame they're not level 2 to secure the kill there. But that's something that you guys at home might be trying yourselves.
Oh, man, what a shame that he's only level 1, man. That's a crime that he doesn't get that kill. Benji is going to end up getting first blooded here, it looks like. I don't think he's getting away from Cherryo once he gets that 1 back up.
By the way, if you do hear an alarm in my background, it's okay. It's just my wife trying to cook in the kitchen. It's not going well from the sounds of it.
How are you going to do Melanie like that, Graham? I thought it was going to be the Aurora
Then she
hit
should
the
realize.
blink alarm.
Listen, oh, still pressure on to Vote, and the axe just missing from Cyclone. But still, if she's going to cook right when I'm in the middle of casting, she should know to make sure it doesn't burn, okay? That's not on me. That's my freaking dinner. I'm allowed to be upset. Cherryo in mid, though, he might go down, but the last Tycho drop wasn't good enough. Oh, they shot from a Dafton off the Mark II. Spacestation Gaming are just holding on in multiple lanes here with the barest scraps of health.
This is the nuttiest 2 minutes of commentary I've ever had in my entire life. Aurora hits the Blink Earthbreaker combo. Lodros is almost at a 1K sit-ups in chat. The fire alarm goes off and Hindu Man seals his fate in getting murdered by his wife later tonight.
She's not listening. She's trying to put out a fire right now.
Don't worry, I'll clip it and send it to her. Don't worry. Or maybe I just hold that over your head for a little bit, you know?
I'm not scared of it. It's okay. Please don't. Please.
Yeah, I know. You guys think Hindu Man's a savage? It's really Melanie that is the true savage in that household.
100%. 100%. Someone's going to keep me in line somewhere, right? Nobody else does. Purple buff was invaded by Radiance there, and now Radiance on the disadvantage in the lane for a second as pressure goes with those minions in favor of Space Station for now. This composition, though, that I'm seeing from Space Station, very tank heavy here, Ryan. Very much focused around Vote and Dardez being the damage dealers as this game goes on. And the others really there to facilitate as time goes on. I am a little bit concerned, though, that if those two don't get comfortable in this game, it's going to be awkward.
Yeah, I think the real key for me is how well iRaffer is going to be able to peel on this Yemoja. I talk about Camazotz as being unpeelable damage an awful lot because it's just so hard to get a carry away from that phenomenal dive potential between the long-range jump and the healing and the ultimate. But maybe Mending Waters is the answer, or maybe Riptides, just get them out of range of that bat out of hell, could be the answer. But it's really going to be up to iRaffer in my mind and how well he can keep Dardez and Vote alive in this game. And I also just want to see some more for Cherryo. I feel like Cherryo has been really, really quiet so far this year. And we talked to you last game about Space Station not looking as good as we expected. And I think that a lot of that has to do with how Cherryo last year was a premier jungler in the SPL. And I just think he hasn't found his footing quite yet this year.
Completely agree. He has really struggled, but at the moment, I just want Space Station to see what they can do in the later stages with this comp, because as we were saying, I want to see what Nika can do as well on this Amaterasu. He had a great game last time we saw him bring it out, and that extra mobility should be able to help out his carries a little bit more. Oh, we're at 4, Ryan. 4 to go.
4 more to go, baby.
Do you reckon it resets like the Millennium clock was supposed to? Do you reckon it just goes back to 0 but doesn't even hit the 1,000?
Dude, I'm just hoping that like the game doesn't crash or something like that as soon as he hits 1K.
Why are you doing it? You cast a curse. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Right, a purple buff. It's going to be looked at by Aror, but now he's under pressure after using the driving strike. Vote, putting some bowlers into the back of his head. Won't be enough to slow Aror down, though, with those Talaria boots. We're back. We're 1 away.
We're 1 away. He's almost there,
Just
Hindu Man. He's nearly at the top of the mountain. He's done it! 1K! Let's go,
Nika.
Lodros, baby. The GOAT.
Benji, meanwhile, trying to invade the blue buff, but he's doing it against 2. Got to be a little bit careful about overextending there. Has the ultimate available if he needs it. But all square at the moment between the two. Outside of the gold differential, I'd say, more than anything else. Radiance doing a much better job of farming at the moment. iRaffer just hit level 5 off those back camps he's doing there. But look at that experience difference, funny enough. 1,400 is pretty good at this stage.
It is, and it's really hasn't been a whole lot of, no kills on the board, not a whole lot of buff invades or anything like that, but a lot of it can be contributed to what CycloneSpin is doing right now, holding this wave. I love the way that he's pulling creeps out of the tower range as much as he can, even using his jump to try and keep aggro on him instead of onto the tower, but also doesn't want to hit them, so that he's pulling this Xbalanque all the way down the lane, and it's going to force an option for Vote to either give up farm, which he has a little bit so far, or put himself in a dangerous position against Ullr and Hercules.
Speaking of over-aggression here, Vote's forced deeper in this lane right now as Cyclone doing a bit of lane freezing to allow Aror a bit of a window to get in there. That's forcing iRaffer to come back over 2. So back to the 2v2 we go in the duo at 6 minutes in. Meanwhile, the junglers are still matched up with the mids and mid, and there's a blink, Earthbreaker, driving strike. Where's your beats now? You're going to need him at the tail end. The boulder off the mark. Oh, that 3 from iRaffer might just help vote out. Nice little use of the River's Rebuke. Aror can't get in range. Cherryo now thinking about wrapping in, but he's worried about adapting in the jungle. And adapting turns his attention on Dardez with BigManTingz. 1 for 1 as the mid laners go down. The jungler's under pressure as Aror comes in with a driving strike, and Aror gets credit for the kill. Crazy action towards the left-hand side. Purple buff looking at being invaded again.
And I don't think iRaffer's going to be able to stop adapting. In fact, he needs to be careful that he doesn't get picked instead. And that's exactly what's going to happen because Aror, what do you know, ladies and gentlemen? Aror carrying another game on Hercules. Crazy how that seems to happen every single time he gets this god. But I got to say, Graham, I mean, Vote's relic usage so far this year has been really, really lackluster. There is just no reason to get hit by that driving strike and then beads at the very end. You just can't do it that way, man. You gotta beads before you get hit by that driving strike. He's just lucky that iRaffer makes a sick play to push him out of the way of the car that's coming down the lane. It just shouldn't have been necessary in that moment.
It really was.
Just has to be more ready.
Yeah, not gonna lie, that play from iRaffer, like, it didn't look like it was really intentional, but it worked out great. The Riptide just throwing him out of the way, and then the River's Rebuke just to give him a bit more distance was enough to survive. I know the beats after the fact felt like it was trying to make sure the axe from Cyclone didn't connect, but the damage was already done by that point. You're so deep in, it's not going to be hard for an Ullr to run you down like a dog, right, as you try and escape. He's going to have his leap and his full combo available.
And that's what I mean. And that's not the first time that that's happened to Vote this year. I mean, having 1 or 2 bad beads in lane where you should be able to assess the situation and know how much damage you're going to take for it, you know, that happens to everybody, but it's been a consistent trend for him at this point.
Consistent trend of Earthbreaker, driving strike, connecting again, and iRaffer's trying to get away. Can he get to the Riptide? Oh, he went away, and the drop from Tingz will be forced just to make sure he secures the kill. Adapting couldn't do it with a bat out of hell alone, but Radiance up 4 kills to 1 for the good so far for Radiance's side. Spacestation Gaming behind at the moment. I guess the good news is they do scale relatively well into the later stages here if they can hold on. But I just don't know if Radiance are going to potentially allow that to happen.
I don't see it. This is a team that just has so many tools at this point in the game. I mean, Adapting's hit a power spike in that Brawler's beat stick. BigManTingz is down to Brawl now that he's got his Divine Ruin. So plenty of anti-heal for both the mid-jungle. And this is why we've been kind of so confused when it comes to Radiance wanting to play for late game. Because they'll just do this to you whenever they pick the Hercules. I mean, you pick Hercules Ullr duo lane, and Vote can't play. iRaffer's 2 levels behind on a priority pick in Yemoja. It just you fall behind so quickly against a team like this, and they just end games by just letting Aror pick Hercules.
Well, Nika at the moment, he's been trying to do something on this right-hand side, but he's not finding a whole lot of nothing at the moment. Now he's going to get run down himself. Nice little whirlpool to slow down the aggression. Riptide comes into play to create some distance, but Adapting is still flanking. Benji's rotating around from the right too. Not sure if we can get a range. Spacestation are back to safety. iRaffer is the only one really there. Won't be able to kill him at that health bar for the time being, as now everybody on Spacestation has to fall back to their own side of the jungle. As Benji marches on in, looking to strip some jungle again. I do like what we're seeing out of Nika though, Ryan. He's trying to make something happen on the right to, at least find something as a result of Radiance's aggression on the left.
And it's not going to happen in lane against the Jorm, because Jorm is impossible to kill in the 1v1, so he's got to try and find it elsewhere. I agree that I like what Nika is up to right now with moving around the map in the way that he is, but if the rotation power is going to be that good from Aror, I don't know that it's really going to matter.
Nothing better than forcing the Yemoja to use the Riptide defensively consistently. Means she's not spamming as many bubble abilities to keep clearing out the waves or heals for the teammates. And speaking of those heals, look at the anti-heal Radiance has already picked up early on, their first item focus. Brawler's Divine Ruin. The healing's not going to matter, but the thing is, Yemoja's not just about the healing. Those shields that come out from those mending waters are so impactful too.
Yeah, if only there was a character that did more damage to shields so you could really counter Yemoja. There is a character, it's just Yemoja. She's the only counter to Yemoja, is playing one on the other side. And that's only happening in casuals, not in the SPL. There is no answer to all that healing and shielding together. Divine Ruin, Brawler's Beat Stick, they're necessary. against this character, you need to be buying them, but it still won't take her out of the fight entirely.
4 members of Spacestation on this left-hand side trying to stop the purple invade, and they've still not managed to do it. The pressure from Radiance was good enough, and that meant that River's Rebuke just not in time to stop Aror from getting away from the danger there. So Radiance find a successful purple invade. Don't really get punished.
Close there from iRaffer, but that wall has to go basically all the way up before it's going to block somebody. And to be honest, I don't know if that even kills Aror in that instance. He is so tanky right now with just the natural healing that he has.
How crazy is it though that like Aror can just pull this out of his back pocket at a whim and cause problems? It's such a huge boon to have on your team, right? To have a guy that can just pull out a pick that you don't see all the time anymore and still make it work out very well in this laning phase. 1-0 and 2, backbone of the early game alongside yet again BigManTingz and adapting. The core 3 from Radiance, I can't believe they've synergized so well together already.
Yep. I almost feel bad for Aror because I'm sure every game his team's like, yeah, Hercules looks really good here. He's like, guys, I'd really like to play something else for once. And they're like, yeah, I don't know. I kind of don't feel like doing anything this game. Maybe Herc for you this time? And it's, okay, I guess I'll go Hercules.
I think that's why we saw the Earthbreaker blink at the start of the game, because it's like, fine, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to try and have some fun, you know? I'm going to try and do something different with it. I just wish it was level 2, because that would have been a highlight kill for sure.
I know. I do have to say, because I'm going to hear about it if I don't say it, I have to give credit where it's due to Neil Ma. He did that last year at the placement lane against Sanguine in the finals, in the game where they were stomping. He hit, I think, Panatom or Shinto with it, or maybe it was Rongyu in the mid lane. And he says we never show the highlight enough. He's probably right. That's
Shut
like
up, Neil.
Okay, sorry.
Get over
My
it.
fault.
Move along. You've had your time in the sun. You won a world championship. You don't get a replay too. Get on with yourself. Enough of that.
It is like the hardest mechanical play that you can do to a good player, pretty much, right? Is the cast Hercules to blink before it happens to pull them to you.
Aror leveled 11 right now, and the difference between him and iRaffer, 3 levels at this moment in time. iRaffer's really having to give up a lot of experience to try and support the rest of his team at the moment. And it's really starting to come back and be a hindrance for the time being, especially when those second relics come into play. That just means Aror's going to have something else to bring to the forefront in these engagements once your blink initiates here. Into the jungle they go again, looking for a red buff invade here, Radiance. And only Yemoja really around, forced to use the Riptide again defensively. However, he might have just brought them all into a danger zone here. CycloneSpin has to use the Aegis. Good driving strike from Aror. Meanwhile, on the right-hand side, Benji trying to rotate and support. Did get isolated there for a second by Cherryo and Dardez, but has to use the ult away. His options are limited on where to escape to. He does choose the right option from my liking back towards his team, and Nika can't find the stun. Adapting, blinking in though, looking for pressure towards Dardez, and the slow is going to make a huge impact. The Aegis buys him some time, but Dardez still falls down to adapting. Credit where it's due though, Nika gets the return kill. Cherryo under pressure, Cyclone hunting, can't find the axe. Nika could be next on instead as he causes the distraction, but look at Radiance running him down. Another kill, big man, 4 on the table.
Man, that was really all started by Benji. He makes 2 really good plays. Number 1, he gets all in by speed buff with Kraken and Cabrakan ult, and he Aegis all of it. Took no damage from it whatsoever. I don't know that Spacestation had pressed tab to realize what secondary relic Benji had, so they overcommit to him, he ults, and then makes the perfect decision in going towards his team. Doesn't end up getting hit by that dazzling offensive where Nika was trying to track him down, and instead pulls all of Spacestation into a really, really bad spot. And from there, Radiance just using their lead to their advantage.
You talk about that lead, but it's a 4K lead right now, but Spacestation trying to answer it back. And I tell you what, if Aror would have got that, I think that would have just been the end of it for me. The gap does close a little bit though, about 2,500 now. Spacestation getting a very good window at that Fury. First one of the game too. Just makes that gold lead dip a bit. It doesn't really touch that experience though, which in the early game is just so important.
This is, that was a critical gold Fury for Spacestation to get, because I agree, you could have started going to get ready to eat dinner if it's not burnt.
Well, it's not burnt,
by now. Yeah, it would have been over pretty quickly had Radiance been able to steal that one away. But as it stands, I mean, they've got this composition that does scale well, but the experience difference between Aror alone is huge.
Oof. Dardez takes out CycloneSpin, who just stepped up too far. Didn't realize Spacestation had so many members there. Spacestation starting to answer back a little bit, though. Gold Fury now a pick on Cyclone, forcing them to defend that red buff a little bit more. So starting to see Spacestation group up a little bit more. And that's where this composition for me really starts to shine, right? These 3 tanks alongside the damage dealers with that Poseidon and, you know, the Xbalanque behind it. I think that's where it's going to shine. And I think they need to start grouping up more. But right now, left-hand side, Radiance are hunting onto these 2 overextended members of Space Station.
Tang's going to jump in and have to use the beads in response. Cherryo just trying to take one with him. But ultimately, it's going to be Cherryo that falls.
And Benji rotated in to support his team here. Doesn't be able to, can't really find anything for Space Station at all. Cherryo ends up falling down there. I like Cherryo's idea. He just couldn't have a teammate with him. The rest of them are just out in the middle of nowhere. So Cherryo now level 13 still. He's gone for the damage build too. So he really is going for that nuke Cabrakan that you sometimes see from that jungle position. Do you expect to see him change that up at all as the game goes on, maybe? If this isn't working
Maybe some
out?
hybrid items. We could see E-Staff or something like that to try and give him some HP, but for the most part, I'd expect mostly damage. You know, you're not building a whole lot of defense on Fat Loki most of the time.
Oh, blink driving strike off the mark from Aror there, but we got to see what the idea was. At level 14, he's plenty tanky to hold this for the tier 1 tower to be chipped down by the carries alongside him. But still, they're just a little bit respectful there. Didn't want to hold on to it too long, a little bit worried about reinforcements, as there wasn't enough vision on the map to keep an eye on that. 3k lead then for Radiance at the moment, and Space Station, as you can see, just kind of hanging around.
And listen, he may have missed, but effectively he hit because Dardez used beads anyways, so it's not the end of the world for that blink driving strike to miss. You got what you wanted, which were those purification beads. We saw one interaction there by Red Buff, by the way, that's worth mentioning. You were asking why we might see Poseidon, and it might be because we've seen so much Ullr. Poseidon, a character that takes some time to get the damage off. The Kraken is pretty reactable at a high level. Ullr, if he's in bow stance, has to have Aegis, because otherwise he's just going to die to it. And that's what we saw at that red buff. No Aegis for CycloneSpin, and Dardez just walked up and insta-crackened him with the Whirlpool. You really don't even have to Whirlpool if he's in bow stance. You can just launch that Kraken, and if they're in the center of it, in bow stance, they can't change stance in time to get out.
Yeah, it's a good point, because when I was looking at it, I was thinking more to do with the Raijin, of like when he goes up into that ultimate, you can Kraken straight away, like a response Kraken, because he's immobile quite a bit. Or even when he tries to Thunder Crash away, his escape is kind of limited there. But no, obviously the Ullr, definitely a bigger factor. Not great against Hercules though. Sure, it can pin him in place, but once Hercules gets tanky, as well as he has done, it doesn't do as much as you're hoping for.
It's very, very difficult to kill him without Divine Ruin, and Dardez has it, but you would have needed Divine Ruin and Spear of the Magus. Spear not good on Poseidon in its current form, so not really worth your buy anymore.
Middle Phoenix finally falls, and now the pressure is actually onto iRaffer as Benji wraps around the back. The Earthbreaker connected with iRaffer, and the drums will connect from BigManTingz. iRaffer used all his Omni there to just try and escape. Without being available, there's a bit more pressure could be had now. Bit of free time for Cyclone on this left-hand side. Looks like Thote's going to head back there, though. Cyclone back to base. Radiance can't really find anything they're comfortable looking to take here.
Man, this Yemoja has just struggled so much, and it's kind of been, these last few weeks have made me really reevaluate, I should say, which gods I think are worth top picking. I don't know that it is anymore.
Play made in mid lane. Darkest and Ice was actually popped there to try and set Cherryo up for an actual bit of aggression. But it comes to naught yet again. Radiance end up falling back, relatively safe here. Cyclone on the left-hand side. Rest of the team now heading towards the right. A couple of jungle buffs really up. Pyromancer is spawning, and they're on the scene already. Nika's the only one really in the area at the moment. 20 minutes in, though, and your jungler's 14, and your support's level now just 11. Rough situation to be in for Space Station Gaming here. This is a long task to get back into it. But we've seen worse before, and a lot of teams that have been in this spot and been able to get back into it, so to speak, and just hold on. Just the task gets trickier and trickier.
It does, and with Cherryo going for more damage, even with this Soul Reaver pickup that he's going for, he's not going to be able to withstand all this damage. He's 4 levels down to the ADC, who he's going to want to be hitting most of the time. He's 3 levels down to BigManTingz, who has top player damage and has just been pounding so far this set. I just don't see a way for Cherryo to be super effective with this deficit. And the same can be said for iRaffer on this Yemoja, who's still down 4 levels. He's down 8 levels to Big Man and Cyclone. who cares about your kit when you're down 8 levels? I mean, it just doesn't matter that much. The level of effectiveness will just be too great.
I don't even think it's the levels too, because sometimes Guardians can get away with it. Hold that thought though. Benji going to get pinched between the walls here. Couldn't see over the top clearly enough to see Nika and Cherryo there, but he's plenty tanky at the moment to hold off those two, it seems. Especially with a bit of magical defense in there as well. Cherryo's not going to be as impactful as he wants to be on that Cabrakan burst. Instead, attention turned towards him. Riptide from iRaffer actually pushed Cherryo into an awkward spot, I feel like. Didn't help him out really at all. And now BigMan going to get wrapped on by Nika at the backside. Meanwhile, the chase is on for Cherryo, who's trying to skirt away with the trident, has to beads away from Cyclone, who did connect the axe, and iRaffer will be a casualty yet again. All the while, Benji's going to push out left-hand side as Vote shows upon the scene once more. And Aror's build, we were talking about items there for iRaffer being important for Guardians being behind. Well, Shield of Regrowth and Relic Dagger, plenty of health, and he's going to be zooming now.
He's moving for sure, and now he's got Aegis, so he can use that every time he tries to get, you try to crack at him. It just isn't going to work for you at all. You've got Aegis on both frontliners, Dardez on this Poseidon. I mean, you pick it to kill the Ullr, you pick it to try and crack and Raijin, you pick it because the Whirlpool's great against Jorm because it procs his Daze passive, and he's trying to build into that with the gem, but I just don't know that they have enough damage with this style.
An attempt at a Fire Giant, doesn't look like it's going to work out well at all. Nika forced to dash away. His carries were right behind him, trying to support if the window became available. But Benji's not done. Using that Will Serpent to dive in very deep here. Aror's trying to get there to support as well and look for an Earthbreaker. All the while, the rest of Radiance take down the tier 2 tower. Cherryo was wrapping around the back, won't help out there. Drum sounded, focused on the Yemoja again. 6 death for iRaffer as Cherryo blinks in. Ultimate connects and takes out 2, I feel like there. And now with that, Benji and Aror still leading the charge with Cyclone behind. But with Adapting and BigMan dead, I'm not sure they can do too much more. However, health bars on Spacestation aren't that good as of right now. No minions in tow. Radiance did a lot of damage after that Fire Giant.
Cherry had a great blink. He one-shot Adapting and BigManTingz, and Dardez really set him up by putting himself in a position where he knows he's going to die, but he gets a decent amount of damage off. Bit unfortunate that his Kraken wasn't centered on BigManTingz though, because he knew Tings had used the Aegis on bottom right mids on response to the last Kraken. If he could have completely one-shot the Raijin, I think that fight goes even better for Spacestation. But frankly, only getting 2 members, it's BigMan and Adapting. BigMan's already level 20, already has his Rod of Tahuti. He doesn't need to farm a whole lot more at this point to have a Rod and 5 items at 23 minutes. He's doing just fine for himself. Adapting needed to be on the map a little bit just to get that Heartseeker, but ultimately is in a pretty effective spot. And you don't take Fire Giant off of the 2 members that are to be tanking who need the regen, and the most important member, which is the ADC, who's going to want it to deal that extra damage towards those structures. Spacestation gets something, but I think it's almost more valuable that they get a lot of relics in that spot. They just have to be able to capitalize on the fact that there's no beads for Adapting or Tings and no Aegis from Cyclone.
I just don't think Radiance will really give him a window to capitalize though. I mean, they've got a couple of towers still left to take down here. They could probably wait out those relics coming back up again. And if Spacestation take a fight out in the open, not on a Phoenix line, I think it's going to be easier said than done. Onto the tier 2 tower we go on the left-hand side. Benji and Adapting, rotating towards the middle area. Spacestation meanwhile on the right, you can see just trying to farm the scraps at the moment. Level 13 now for iRaffer, who did pick up that Kasari. Shogun's Kasari now online. I like the idea of trying to support the team when you're not much you can really do yourself at this moment. I'm just not so sure about that Sunday selection.
I think it's the only way they ever have a chance to kill Aror. Like,
True.
Aror is literally unkillable unless you sunder him. And at this point, you're so far down, what would iRaffer have gotten that would have helped? Sprint?
Yeah.
They don't
Aegis?
care. Aegis, maybe, but you're just going to die as soon as you get out of Aegis, so that doesn't really help you that much. I think that this is a smart risk. You know, it's low percentage chance, but there's a chance at the very least.
Everybody of Radiance now grouping in mid. All the towers are now down. Fire Giants still around their waist for about another 50 seconds. And it looks like what Radiance are trying to do here is just pull Spacestation around a little bit. Don't allow them to scraps in the jungle like this Pyromancer that's just available now. As Radiance turn up there, and also they can push out that right-hand side. It's a bit stalled out from the team here. I guess it is only 25 minutes in. For some reason in my head, I feel like this is 40 minutes deep with how this one's been so far.
It's been a lot of action, but in
Yeah.
a pretty short amount of time. Certainly feels like it could be later, but at this point, I mean, Radiance had so much gold left to take on the map that they were up 8K when they had reset after losing 2 members. Now after this Gold Fury, they're going to be up 13. They can finish all the items they want. Heartseeker for sure for adapting. I mean, a mantle for Aror. Good lord, it would take Spacestation so long to actually kill this guy because they don't have brawlers either. With the magical damage in the jungle, they've got double divine, but those don't stack, of course. And Vote can't afford to go brawlers. It would be a horrible DPS loss for him. So you only have one form of anti-heal right now, and that's one divine ruin. No chance they can kill Aurora at level 20 right now. No chance.
We're looking for a pick here. That's what it looks like from Spacestation Gaming. In comes Aror charging in, pops the mitigate wounds and zooms at them. But Spacestation do whittle his health down a little bit there and force him back. Radiance aren't done though. Marching on his Benji and round the left-hand side come Adapting and Cyclone 2. Minion wave cleared out by BigManTingz. Spacestation Gaming having to scatter, but they're scattering together at least is the main thing. Just Cherryo off on this side again, looking for the angle to the backline if he can find it. While Radiance creates this separation though, Fire Giant is respawning, and they're able to get themselves in a pretty good spot. Spacestation just waiting for the window. It looks like they're going to have to take a fight soon, and that's what they seem to be looking for themselves.
But how do they punch through this front line for Radiance? I mean, Aror and Benji can just be up front tanking everything, and the rest of the carries can just do whatever they want.
Oh, River's Rebuke lands on a couple here. Benji forced to ult, but Cyclone deleted iRaffer already. Kraken does take out BigManTingz though, and Spacestation might have found a bit of an answer. You can't kill the front line, but go for the back. Adapting has done enough of that though. Bad out of hell takes down one, and Benji's damage will take out another. Cherryo getting fallen to Adapting with that double kill now, and Nika at the tail end. This could be the end of it as Cyclone heads down towards the right-hand side. Phoenix under threat. Respawns. Well, good news is they've got to respawn up soon, but it is a level 15 Yemoja. I don't think there's a whole lot she's going to be able to do about this.
No, looks like Radiance is going to keep their undefeated record and continues to look very strong. I think Spacestation did the best they could in that team fight, circumstances understood, but they have to dump everything in order to be able to kill Big Man, and that leaves Adapting, Aror, CycloneSpin, and Benji to have their way with the rest of the team fight.
Absolute great performance out of Radiance today. For my liking, this has probably been the most competitive year of the SPL I've ever seen. We've seen some close starts, some good teams at the top. It felt like a 7-1 league to me with how it's played out so far. Honestly, I think Radiance is going 1-6-1 right now. I think is how the table's starting to look. Everyone's chasing those boys at the top.
I think there's no question that they are the best team in the league right now, but it's about how will they adjust as changes come through, metas start to change. I mean, they've got the tools to be a world championship team, no doubt. They've got 4 of them on the roster, 5 world titles between the 5. I think that this is a team that you have to be ready for at all times because they look unstoppable right now.
Hard to pick an MVP from Radiance, honestly, across the set. I think Aror in Game 2 was fantastic, but the whole squad in Game 1 too. Great play from Radiance. Let's get it down to back to the desk, rather, to break it down.
Same as always here for Radiance. Cool, calm, collected, aggressive there in the early game. A game that started off a little chaotic, then they stretched that lead right on towards the end. And now, after this game, Radiance, 4 of the bottom 4 players as far as deaths in this league, with Aror being the outlier. They don't die a lot, and it shows in their gameplay there, Miff.
I mean, not dying is a pretty good strategy, and it comes fully to fruition. In Game 2, CycloneSpin takes a little bit of break, doesn't matter. BigManTingz activated. Take a peek at that slash line. 7-3-5. What a beast.
Yeah, 7-3-5 on BigManTingz, adapting at 5-2 and 11. Benji undying, Aror undying in this game as well. So he's trying to close the gap on the rest of his teammates. And it was kind of a different look. I said it was very similar, but a different look in the sense that it wasn't CycloneSpin going crazy here in this game, but it was a similar look in the fact that Benji was doing a great job of finding some setup. Aror was as well, and then adapting and BigManTingz provided the big damage around the end there. And I'm loving what I'm seeing out of BigManTingz. I got to admit, this Raijin has just been looking consistent and good for him, and I think it's hard to kind of look at any one specific member on this team, because this is a team that now has won 6 straight games, and it's all born out of everyone doing their job.
I mean, what did Hindu Man just say? He broke down the league as 1-6-1. I think that's about as accurate as can be. This Radiance squad has shown zero sign of weakness. Their team play is good. It doesn't matter if you force out one of their star players. They've got 2 more. Shut down CycloneSpin? It's cool. We got Adapting. Shut down Adapting? Well, you know, BigManTingz is chilling in the wings. Oh, hey, I kind of liked what I did there. Aror as well.
Spot on.
Yeah, Aror as well. Just facilitating every play, frontlining masterfully, finding the engage, peeling when the team needs it. These guys, it's clinical. It really is. They're just clocking in when they load into these SPL matches, find their 2 quick dubs, and clock out.
Well, I'm going to probably ask you the hardest question you've had yet, doing some Chair 2 analysis. What's it going to take to beat these guys? I mean, maybe the better question is, what is working so well that teams need to identify and maybe try to counter out? I mean, the aggressive early game has just been oppressive from them.
The early game is really good from Radiance, but they're winning every step of the way. Most of these teams like, well, their early game's good, but maybe they struggle with late game decision making. Not Radiance. No. Maybe their mid game's strong, but their early and late can be exploited. Not Radiance. Aggro said it in game 1. They just play good Smite. The only thing that's going to beat them is better Smite. Whether or not a team could do that is yet to be seen.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I'm not sure they can. All the pieces have seemingly started to come together. Remember, Radiance next week will go up against Team Rival. That is next Saturday. They'll play against Rival. Here's your schedule from this week. Pittsburgh Knights SSG kicked off the week. SSG finding that win. United Obey went head-to-head to start off Saturday. And then just today, we had a World Championship run back with the jungler swapped where Rival was able to come out on top. And then we just watched Radiance 2-0 over SSG. Mifflin, I think, realistically, actually, this is a week where everything maybe kind of goes as expected. I think Sanguine Renegades was one of those ones that was kind of contested back and forth, but nothing really jumped out to me this week. I think the teams that I expected to win kind of ended out on top.
Well, that's a weird flex there, Dave. I may have cast my vote towards SSG like a little bit. Yeah, you got more points than me, bud. I get it. Congratulations.
Yeah, what I can highlight my messages for Lodros more often than you can in Twitch chat. We don't have a post-game chat with him. We do have a post-game interview with Aror and see how the Guardian is feeling after this big win.
I mean, you call him a Guardian there, Dave. It's not really a Guardian. Aror plays what he wants to. 1 second. Can you just can you make sure Biggie's not going to be behind you this time?
I can't promise that. I'm sorry.
Okay, I was kind of excited about it if it is, if I'm honest, after the last one. Aror, how you doing, first of all? Obviously, you must be excited about the win.
Yeah, I'm doing great. I think everybody played really well. My team played phenomenally well in that set. Yeah, I'm really excited that we won.
So what is it for you guys? Here we go. Here we go. Knew it was happening. Oh, not on Twitch, son. Not on Twitch. We'll get banned. We can't have that. Yeah, coming back to that game, though, honestly, game 1 looked really clean from you guys. I mean, obviously, from the interviews we've had with you boys, you've all come across as like being very level-headed about the conversations you've had. You realize you've got areas to improve. What are some of the standout things that you guys feel like you need to improve on still with how you're looking at the moment?
Just still team things like around objectives and just communication. Like I said before, I feel like we do really well in the little skirmishes that we have all around the map, but we just got to keep improving on like the team play, like when we all get grouped up and we're making rotations around the map together and things like that. Sorry, but yeah, I think once we get that rolling, we're going to be even better than we are right now, and I'm excited to just keep improving.
You guys are doing a great job. I want to talk a little bit about the Hercules game too. I mean, Ryan was saying that maybe your teams always go, hey, why don't you just pull up the Hercules so I can get carried? Is that how it goes down? Like, do you like bringing it out now and again, or is it like just something that's in the god pool that you go to?
Yeah, I mean, I like playing Herc. I guess it's kind of like a little bit of everything. My team's always like, come on, just play it, and I like playing it. And then some games, I don't know, it's a little bit of everything. It's fun to play, though. I really enjoy playing it, and I have fun whenever I play it in the SPL. It's always a good time. Were you a little bit sad that you didn't get that? You know, you weren't level 2 for that Earthbreaker Blink combo. You didn't get the kill off that one. Yeah, at the end of the day, though, it was still good. We got pressure off it in lane, so it wasn't the end of the world. But it would have been cool to get a kill off a pull like that. But we'll see. Maybe next set.
I hope so. I mean, last real question for you, Raw. what is it that's going to stop you guys? What do you think is your biggest potential problem in the future? Who is it that you're worried about? Are you worried about anyone? What is it?
I think the biggest thing that I'm worried about, which isn't really a worry, and it's something that we're going to keep improving at, is just like ourselves, basically. Like, if we beat ourselves, I feel like that's the way we're going to lose. And if we just keep improving and getting better as a team, I feel like that won't happen. And I'm just excited to keep moving forward and excited to play Rival next week.
Really excited to watch that too. Aror, thanks so much for joining me. Stay humble. Hope your team stay as disciplined as they've looked so far. Back to the desk to break it down at the end of the day.
Thanks.
Appreciate it, Hindu. That's Aror, the support for Team Radiance. And apparently even Aror doesn't have the great answer to what it's going to take to beat these guys themselves, I suppose. And they don't seem too worried, Mifflin, about any of these other teams coming in and really giving them a big run for their money. I mean, it's a long split. They're going to have tumultuous sets. They'll get pushed to game threes eventually. It's going to be tough for them to remain undefeated. But I think they have the right level of confidence moving forward, excited to get better.
The right level of confidence. To quote my boy a little bit with different words, he said, "No one's beating me besides me." That's raw, unfiltered, unadulterated, just pure confidence, and that's what this squad needs going forward. I mean, that's what they've proven so far through week 3, is that's all it's going to be. The only one that is going to beat them is them.
And I think, actually, realistically, of course, it's the perfect start for them. Literally, they're 4-0, haven't lost a game yet, 8-0 across individual games. But you talk about a way to get these teams to mesh together, these guys to mesh together. Doing it in a winning fashion is certainly easier. This is next week's schedule. E-United Sanguine will kick us off on Friday. Radiance back in action against Team Rival on Saturday. E-United SSG will headline over there on Sunday. So we're going to get another look there at Sanguine, Mifflin, another team that there's been a lot of chatter around kind of where they stand in this league. E-United Sanguine, and then Pittsburgh Knights Sanguine. And Sanguine still at second place here at 3-1. Do you have your eyes on any of those teams, E-United and Pittsburgh Knights, for maybe giving Sanguine a run for their money in that third place spot?
I mean, the performances from both teams, E-United and PK, they've been incredibly good. Sanguine have stumbled a little bit on this third week, so let's see if we get week 1 and 2 Sanguine going into week 4, or if we see more of the same. It seems like a lot of these teams in the SPL have really identified what Sanguine's going for. They know that maybe we take Nectarioid off of that Jingwei, maybe we don't give them the Horus. There's ways to deal with what Sanguine has shown, but that being said, Sanguine's only shown one true strategy. Maybe they've got a lot more in their back pocket.
That's true. Remember, Sanguine back in action to start off our SPL week. April 24th, 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Make sure to tune in. The SPL will be back in just a few short days. But that's all we've got for you here this week. My name is Dolson. Mifflin was here with me on behalf of us, everyone in production. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.